All right. What's
Yeah.
up, Team Tobias? What's up, Mammoth Cave City? I'm here. It's Lane Haymont here with Jackie Lipton, Kelly Dyksterhouse, and Ann Rose. I was waiting for that. Today we're going to be discussing conferences because Ann was telling us about something that I had heard about a certain conference that was run terribly. And then it got me thinking about all these other conferences that I've been to, and they always seem to be pardon my filthy pig Latin shit show.
Oh, is that what happened? I have no idea what you're talking about. You just said that there was a big conference, and so I asked you if it was a certain conference, and then you said yes. But
well, I saw the person you mentioned on Facebook talking about how horrible it was and how they are so apologetic for things, how they ran so poorly, and readers were in line for hours and then they couldn't get in, and what a travesty is. So it was very much a readers conference,
yeah,
as opposed to a writers conference. And as you can probably see, my glasses are all loop-de-loop because I have dark eyes under my bags in my eyes because the dog woke me up super early. I'm exhausted, so it takes a lot of work to get pretty for this.
I hadn't heard that there were problems from that. I just knew that the conference had taken place. I hadn't heard anything about it, so that is all news to me.
Big problems, and it got me thinking about all the conferences I've been to and how conferences in general seem to be very problematic. I don't know. Oh, you shrug at me. I wonder, do you disagree?
Yeah. I don't know. I've been to a number of really great conferences. So
that's the thing. So have I. I've been to a ton of good conferences. You come back, but then I come back and I hear all these horrible things happen. I'm like,
I think, first of all, you're always going to hear, you're never going to make everybody happy. Everyone's experience is unique to them. But overall,
true.
I have run conferences. I have gone to conferences. Some are better than others. But in general, I think they can be very beneficial to industry professionals and authors alike. I'm not going to bash conferences as a whole. I think also it's a great place to find community.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how conferences are good, which they are. I found a lot of good clients at conferences. Josie Kilpack I found at a conference. Actually, more she found me at a conference. But there is the community aspect. And I mean, I think it is very much, especially when you're starting out, a great networking place to be. Even if you don't have anything to sell, to pitch. I know when I first started Tobias, the first thing I did was hop a plane to LA and make the rounds with studios and producers. And I didn't necessarily have anything in particular to pitch. I don't even remember if I pitched anything. But it's that connection, FaceTime, as everyone is so always talking about. So my question is, Ann, what's your favorite conference that you've been to? And I think you were just at a conference, weren't you?
Was I?
Did I make that up? I don't know. I could have literally
what is time?
I could have pulled that out of my head.
I went to a conference in February. I went to a pretty big conference in February.
It's April? Oh, it's the end of April.
May, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So 2 months ago, you went to a conference. I hope you had a good time.
It was it was a good time. It was an interesting time. It was different than a lot of the conferences that I go to. I think that SCBWI, for those who don't know, it's the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI. I think they generally do really great conferences. I did one for the North Carolina chapter at the end of last year. That's Kelly's chapter, I believe. And it was fantastic. It was such a great, it was a great group. It was well organized. It was a lot of great FaceTime with other writers and the industry professionals. And I think those kinds of like smaller conferences are my favorite, just because you kind of do get to know everyone like on a more personal level.
Okay. Jackie, you were at a conference. Am I making that up?
Probably.
No, I'm 1,000% sure you were just at a conference.
Was I? I'm going to a couple. I actually, one thing I think about a lot with conferences, and this may be getting too much into the weeds, but many of these conferences, SCBWI, some of what used to be the Writers Digest conferences and now Writers Day workshops, Atlanta, DFW Con, a lot of them have paid critique opportunities with agents and editors. And one thing I wanted to say is I'm always curious as to how those are really sold to authors, because for those of us who are generally open to queries, like I'm usually open to queries, a lot of people just come in and sort of, here's my query. And it's like, well, if you've paid to sit down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, with someone, it seems like, what is your expectation of what you're going to get out of that time? Because if it really is just a submission opportunity, I mean, if someone's always open to queries, it's not much of an opportunity. I read all of my queries anyway. So I'm curious as to what people think about, I have no objection to people paying to have FaceTime with agents, and particularly with editors who may be interested in actually purchasing their book. But I often wonder about what are the expectations that authors are told to go in with.
And you're an author. So what is the expectation? Because I assume in the ancient history of your writing career that you went to conferences and paid for these things. I have no evidence of that. I'm just suspicious.
I have been to conferences as a writer. That is a true statement. But I think all of us are writers here. It's not just
me.
I've
done that.
So
have you gone to conferences and paid to pitch and sit? Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm cheap and would never pay. I wouldn't pay anyone to do anything. They should be paying me. That's the way I think about everything.
Well, I think go ahead, Anne.
No, please.
Well, I mean, when I have gone to conferences as an author, I think I tended to try and book time to meet with editors so I could ask them, what they're looking for and what the trends are. And because I knew that, you can query any agent. I mean, if there was someone who was notoriously closed to queries, but they were having a special opening for people who go to X conference, I might have done that. But I think when I was doing that, I tended to be, I don't know what word I want. Vocabulary fails me today. But I don't want to say strategic, because it's not strategic. It's just I was thinking, why do I want to meet this person and pay money rather than just submit to them? So I tended to look for people who I couldn't just submit to anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think, I would agree with that. I also think, actually, the conversation I had with a client last week, she's an author, illustrator, picture book writer. She's authored some picture books. She's illustrated some, and she's got some that she has been both the author and the illustrator on. And she has some new manuscripts available. So she took them to a conference, and in SCBWI, she got great. They had a portfolio viewing. So she had the art directors were there who could view her portfolio. They took her card so they would know her name. It's great visibility. She got, I think, a dummy critique of a new work. And then she's also looking at expanding into middle grade. And so she had her middle grade manuscript critiqued by a wonderful author who's also a fantastic teacher, and was really encouraging. So I think there's benefit, even if you're agented and published, to continue going to conferences and getting in front of professionals.
I mean, I think there's a difference between critique and pitching too, because
right.
I think getting an industry professional's input on your work is always valuable. And sometimes people confuse that with pitching, but sometimes the conferences where you're just, hey, I'm going to sit here and pitch this thing. And it's like, but you could email me and I'd spend more time with it probably.
I think that's a really good point to bring up. I think that a lot of authors are go to conferences expecting to pitch when really what they need to be there for is critique. They're not ready to pitch, but they think they are. And they really would benefit more from, and they're still getting a critique, but maybe they go hoping that an editor or agent would request their work, but really what they need to be focused on is still working on their craft.
I think the pitch session itself, though, can have value for writers, right? So it's
Sure.
it's putting together that little elevator pitch and seeing if it's hitting or not, but allowing enough time and opportunity to talk with a professional about, like, did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Do you have lingering questions? That kind of thing. So, because I usually end up asking more questions. Like, they tell me it, but I'm like, okay, but what else, right? So we can have a conversation about the piece. We can also maybe talk about inspiration behind the piece, or what made them want to write it. So I think sometimes there can be value added to those little pitch sessions, but you have to give time to open that communication if you're going to be the one pitching. You can't just sit there and speak at someone for 3 or 4 minutes, and you're wasting your time at that point, I think.
Yeah, I think when I went to my very first SCBWI, the big LA conference, as an author, like many years ago, and I was there with a bunch of friends from one of my writing classes. This was well before MFAs and stuff like that. So those were like online classes. So I was meeting these folks for the first time and we didn't know each other well. And it seemed to be like a competition. It was like, hey, I got this many cards from an agent, or this many agents asked me to send their pages. And I was too green and new to the whole thing to realize that sort of doesn't mean all that much, because I could send my pages to all of those agents and it doesn't necessarily, I don't know. I think I often see authors at conferences putting too much stock in, are you going to ask me for my pages? It's like, you can always send me your pages. Let's do what Anne said. Let's talk about the project. Let's talk about how you're positioning it. There's hundreds of agents you can always send your pages to. This isn't about, how many agents will ask to see. I mean, some of us will ask to see pages because it's easier just to do that than to explain why we don't think it's a good fit in the space of 10 minutes. So I don't know. I think people get very hung up about that. That's very mean and unfair, isn't it? Like, everyone shout at me now.
No, I think that's not unfair at all. I think that I love the pitch sessions when it's just like, hey, I just came here to pick your brain and I just want to ask you some questions. And I'm like, absolutely, this is your time. We can use it however you want to. So do it. Let's do this. So I think those are great.
I agree with Anne, because I'm going to StokerCon for the first time in, 30 years. And I'm doing pitch sessions, or taking pitch sessions, for the first time in 5 or 6 years. So despite the fact I'm sure people will be nervous coming up saying I'm nervous, I'm going to be like, I'm terrified. I haven't done this in 5 or 6 years. I tweeted about it. So I hope people come for the pick your brain, because that's a lot easier to just hang out and talk with someone. So, I mean, I think I look forward to going to the conference, because it's been 5-6 years since I've been to a conference. I haven't had that kind of camaraderie being around people and events and all that stuff. I have to amp it up. And I do remember one session where someone sat down, they're like, I'm so nervous. I was like, relax, I'm just some dude. I was picking up my dog crap this morning. And they were like, well, you're an agent. I was like, yeah, and I had my hands knee deep in animal feces. I was like, so relax. But now I'm the one who's shaking and like, oh. So
I kind of get
totally do.
Like, if somebody's nervous, I get nervous too. It's that whole empathy, so I'm always like, this is just fun. It's chill. This is here to learn. You need to put them at ease initially. And that helps put me at ease then too. But
so should I bring them on?
I'm curious, have we all had the situation that we've all heard about where somebody follows you to the bathroom to give you a pitch?
No, I haven't. No, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the manuscript to be slipped under the stall, and it still has not happened yet. I'm waiting. I don't think I can call myself an agent because someone has never
No, yeah,
given me a manuscript under the stall.
that is a box you still have to check.
I haven't checked the box.
Yeah.
I've certainly had people grab me on my way into or out of the bathroom saying, "Oh, I'm pitching you later today," or it's like, but that's fine because then they're not actually handing you something. They're just saying, "Hi, I'm looking forward to talking to you later." And it's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll just be going to the bathroom now.
I've had people follow me, and I'm sure you can imagine I'm not the type of person who likes to be followed.
You've read too many horror novels.
Yes. Yeah, and I like my space. I don't want someone encroaching on me. So yes, I haven't gotten the bathroom slip manuscript under the stall, and I'm kind of with Anne. I wish it would happen so I could be like, oh, thanks, I'm going to read this. Like I'm going to sit here and read it.
Reading material.
Yep.
I'm
You know,
waiting.
the one I really dislike, and this is just me because, and I think I am getting hard of hearing as I get older, I really do. But when they have the big thing in the ballroom with the music blaring and you're supposed to go and people are supposed to sort of pitch you, you're supposed to be available for people to tell you about their work, and I can't hear a darn thing.
Mm.
And I have people like in my face, like just pitching like nonstop. And I'm like, I can't hear what you're saying. I don't understand. And I get the idea behind it, but I'd like it if it was a quiet afternoon tea and we were all sitting. So I typically, when there are those things, if authors want to know where I am, I'm outside the front on the sofa with my drink, with a spare seat next to me if anyone wants to sit down and talk to me, but I just can't do it. I can't be in a big loud room and hear what people are saying.
I think that's why I enjoyed that Carolinas conference so much, Anne, because there was so much time. There were so many rocking chairs you could sit into, or go for a walk around the campus by the lake. And I feel like the faculty was easily accessible in a very non-stress environment to just sit down and chat. It wasn't high stress. You've got 15 minutes. Got to get it all said right now.
Yeah, I agree. North Texas did something similar to that a
Mhm.
few years ago, and I think it's the same thing. It was just it was a smaller faculty, but we got to really get to know like who we were with and get to know all the writers by names, and it was just much more low key and casual and
Yeah.
comfortable. And I love those ones. The one I did in February, by contrast, was one that had hundreds of people, so I barely got to meet anybody, and it was just a much different environment. So
I'm going back to what Jackie said about just hanging out with your drink, and I wonder if I can do that because I think that's the issue I have with pitches too, Jackie. Is you're stuck in a loud, hot room, things going off around you,
Mm.
and you have to pay attention to one person right in front of you. Well, you're in the middle of landmines.
take notes. That's
You
what I
know
do.
me in notes.
I take notes because it helps with the hand and so it's like I'll just write little things down that they say, and it kind of just helps me stay focused on what's going on here.
Mm.
So they tell me the genre, I write it down. They tell me a main character name, I write it down. And so that way when they stop and I have questions, I can look down and be like, oh, what did Tom, what does Tom want in his story, or whatever it may be. So, and it kind of gives you also a jumping off point. So sometimes it's that fact of holding that pen in your hand. Sometimes it's as easy as that to help you stay focused.
I wonder how wild and prima donna, is that a sexist term, prima donna? Because I don't know. I don't even know where it comes from. I assume the Madonna, but
No, it's first lady in a performing setting. It's like a, protagonist in an opera.
oh, then I have no idea.
You just thought it was Madonna herself.
Not like the singer Madonna, but like the Madonna. Would it be too quote unquote diva to say I'm going to go sit somewhere else and just send my people there? Because
Just tell the, I mean, I've done that a lot of times. I just tell the organizers, I say, I'm here, I'm available. I can't actually hear in this room, so I'm going to be over here. Just direct people my way.
I think it depends on if it is scheduled times. So if people have scheduled specific times to be with you, then they're told to go to a specific room to check in, to meet with you. And then that's how they are able to make sure that you're on schedule and rolling. And so if that's a situation, then probably not. But if it's more of like a casual, hey, it's a happy hour, but just make yourself available, then I think that it'd be okay.
See, it's the sensory stuff that like goes off around me that it's like, I don't want to say it's like a war zone because that's a silly thing to say, but it is very much like boom, 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 stuff going off
you
around.
couldn't ask for another room. Like I've been in those, like those scheduled pitch sessions where there's 20 people in the room and it's very hard to hear. And you can just say to the organizer, is there a quieter corner I can sit in? Because there's usually at a big hotel, there's usually a quieter place that, and then as long as the person directing the authors can send the person, you know, as long as it's not too far away. But we had that at something I was at last year. It was like on a mezzanine and it was a big open space. And as long as we were kind of in that space, if we wanted to take our little name tag and move it and tell the organizers where we were sitting, that was fine.
When was the last time you all took pictures? Because I'm curious now and nosy in general.
I did do another conference. That is right. I forgot. I did do a Writers' Day conference, one of those Writers' Digest ones. I forgot about it because life and I don't know. So I did. I took pictures there. I took pictures at the one in February. I think I'm also taking them. I'm going to be in Boston next month. I think I'm taking pictures there as well. No, I'm doing critiques there. So I have read pages already of attendees. And so we'll have time to discuss what they have written at that one. But I'm hosting some sort of table or something at an event. So I don't know how that works. We'll see.
At the Boston event? Like a dinner table?
I think it's more like a cocktail hour. I really have no idea. I just show up and I just let them tell me what to do. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, actually the Maryland Writers Conference, which I have not been to in person for a couple of years, but Steffi went last year, they do that for the lunch where they'll have an agent at each of the tables and it's a table of like 8 to 10 people and everyone can sort of talk about their work over lunch. And it is kind of a loud room, but then there's a break after. So if you couldn't really hear people, you can mill out into the hallway and continue the conversation.
I did critiques at a conference 3 weeks ago, but with critiques, not pitches.
Yeah, I've done critiques more recently, I think. I think I haven't taken pictures. I mean, I've done online pitch stuff, but I haven't physically taken pictures since fall of last year, but I've certainly done critiques and I've done online pitch contests.
So for the critiques, do you show up in real life and then discuss it with them? Or is it just something you pass in the papers and they go on their merry way?
It depends on the conference. Many now offer the choice. So, you know, you can pay for an in-person critique or a written only critique. I've done both.
And interestingly enough, I didn't know this, which probably should have. Back when the AALA was the AAR, it was against the canon of ethics, apparently, to partake in those.
Right.
And I don't know if anyone knew that or realized it, or if I'm just a naive little boy and just never thought about it. But it was a big issue because, you know, that's how most agents supplement their non-salary, their commission. You know,
they're non-salary. Yes.
Yeah, and I remember having an exchange with the AAR lawyer on someone's behalf. I won't say who because I do not remember, but it was. I'd like to take credit, even though I'm sure it's not anything I said, for them coming out and changing that. Because I understand thinking that there's a conflict of interest and agents shouldn't be paid up front, but I think it's more about giving the authors that chance.
I think it's about expectation.
Yes.
So like it shouldn't be expected just because you paid money that you're going to get an offer. So I think it's the pay to play scenario that they want to try to not have, but yeah, that's all I had to say about that.
And I think it was confusing originally because, technically the original AAR code of conduct shouldn't apply at all in that situation because the people paying for your critique are not your clients. So, it is clearly a very different situation because there's no fiduciary relationship because they are not a client. I believe the current rules that I don't have in front of me clarify that when you do that, you are not acting as an agent, but I think they also say that if you later sign someone who paid for a critique, you have to give the money back. And I don't know how that would ever work in practice because it's like, well, who do you give it to? It was the organization that paid you. The person paid the organization. So if Anne pitches to me at a conference and she's paid $20 and I later sign her, well, she paid whoever the conference organizer was. They paid me whatever portion of it. Like, who am I supposed to pay the money back to? So I'm not really sure that approach works. It was an attempt to clarify that really the situation is when you're critiquing them, they're not a client. So it's like no duty.
And then RWA, I remember, back in its heyday, even agents had to pay the conference fee to show up. But if you took a certain amount of pitches, like either an hour or 2 hours, they would cut how much you had to pay or comp you for free. And we never made money because I think that's where I met Josie S. Kilpack, who is a rock star and I have been with for 8 years, 9 years. And we've done wonderful things again. She just sold another 3-book deal, mystery series, super excited. And I don't remember if it was a paying conference or not. I think it was RWA.
Well, I think that's a whole different conversation about agents going to conferences and either getting paid or not. So,
yes. Oh, what do you think? Should agents get paid to go conferences or should we just be comped the conference fee?
I think we should get paid.
Yeah.
I agree. And it's interesting that I think the biggest conferences are the ones that don't pay. Like, I don't think RWA ever paid. I don't think Romantic Times Book Convention ever paid.
I
And
think that agents are a draw. So agents and editors at these conferences are a draw because we make ourselves accessible to the writers, and the writers want to learn from us and take our expertise. A lot of times we teach classes, a lot of times we take pitches, a lot of times we do critiques. So we are working the entire time and we bring in our industry knowledge and experience that we have taken years to learn. So I think that we should be paid for our time.
I agree. And I think we actually have, I know we have an agency policy that you don't go to conferences you don't get paid to go to.
And I do think there's a difference between going to a conference not as conference faculty just because you want to go and you want to hang out with your agent and editor friends, which I'm doing at a conference later this year. And I'm not on the faculty and I'm not giving any talks. And so no one needs to pay me for my time because I'm actually just there to network with some of my clients and whatever. But I think if someone is paying me to do a thing, give a talk, take pictures, whatever, then that's a different thing because then that is time that you would otherwise be spending doing something that would make money. And, if I choose to go to a conference just because I want to go to it and I'm not officially going to it, that's me choosing to do that in my free time. But if I'm taking time away from something else, I need to be compensated for that.
Final thoughts?
I mean, I don't really have a lot to add. I think you guys are all making really great points. I mean, I'm thinking of advice to give to authors who might be listening to this. And that's, I think, when you're looking at paying money to go to a conference, I think you really need to have a clear vision of what you want to get from the conference, whether it be networking with other writers and developing a critique group, getting feedback on a brand new project, or trying to get your work in front of an editor or agent and get professional industry feedback. I think it's just really have a clear idea of what you want to achieve from the conference because they're expensive.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would 100% endorse everything Kelly said. And I would add that to the extent that your rationale is, well, there's these 3 people, I really want to meet them, I really want to have a conversation with this person. I know it's easier said than done to sort of chill out and just accept that this is just a person who is subjectively giving you their, try not to put agents and editors too much on a pedestal. Try not to think that every word that drops from their mouth is pure gold, because it is all subjective. And all we can do is give you the benefit of our opinion and our experience, and that may not work for you. So don't feel like, it's the end of the world if an agent or editor says something that doesn't vibe with you. It just means they have a different view.
I agree with both of you. I think tamper your expectations and figure out what it is that you want to do. I think conferences are great. I think they're great for networking with other writers. I think they are great for getting industry knowledge that you might not be able to get otherwise. So, yeah.
And why don't you take us out?
All right. So thank you again for joining us, everyone, for another episode of The Literary Lens with Lane Haymont and Kelly Dyksterhouse and Jackie Lipson and me, Ann Rose, here. So make sure you like, subscribe, and if you want to join our Patreon, I think we have one of those. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but I think we have one if you want to do that. We have a Discord channel that we try, but people I don't know. Come Discord with us. Something. I don't know. So have a great rest of your whatever day this airs.